try this new guy one in the cup.
How does a guy one feel?
It feels good. Surprisingly.
So last year, 2022. So there's the UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage organization. Every year they release a new representative list of cultural practices that they believe are significant, that contribute to us as a species as a whole, and are worthy of protection and preservation. And so last year, Chinese tea, traditional tea processing techniques, and associated social practices in China, that officially made the 2022 list. Yeah.
So it was such a big news in the tea world, basically in China, and I was pretty excited about this, and I knew that the Chinese government and even like a lot of professions in China, they've been preparing for this for a long time.
Right.
Yeah. And finally last year
it was into the list, and so it's a big. I mean, it's significant.
Yeah.
I mean,
tea processing has been like thousands of years in China, but not many people outside of China know about Chinese tea.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And I guess that's as we're doing this kind of business, like we realize that a lot of people's perceptions of tea, like it's different from ours, right? Like we know that tea's, it's originated from China, thousands of years of history, but some people don't even realize that tea originated from China, and like the traditional processing methods that go into making tea. People are like, unfortunately, the majority of people still see tea as being cheap tea bags and
exactly.
mass-produced, kind of product. But there's such a rich history behind it, and because we're in this world, we kind of think that that's obvious.
That's obvious, but outside of this little world,
outside our little bubble, it's actually not.
But I mean, now it's finally like. Is recognized by the world. It's actually, it's
at least like a world-renowned organization has recognized this as being something that is, I guess what it means. This world body, UNESCO as an organization, has recognized that this part of Chinese culture, the tea processing methods, traditional tea processing methods, and all the social practices around it, that is. Like it's a unique bit of Chinese culture, and something that is worth. And I think what the significance of the list is that these things are worth not just practicing but preserving for future generations. Because like these things, it's labor intensive, right? Like the traditional tea processing methods is super labor intensive, and I guess in this modern day, like let's be real about it. There's less and less people that can do it properly. Like, I mean, I'm sure it's not exactly I guess you would say like a booming industry.
No, definitely not. Like, can we say the dying industry? Probably.
Well, is it?
It's kind of like a 50-50. Like it's been of mix. Like,
I mean, the tea industry as a whole, at least, I guess, I mean, in China, at least in China, it's definitely big. And it's definitely, I guess I wouldn't say it's going away, but traditional processing methods being made a part of this list, I mean, I guess part of it is like, okay, there's recognition that it's significant, there's cultural significance to it, but there's also recognition that it's something that's worth preserving. So efforts need to be made to ensure that these methods and these social practices do not die out in future generations to come. Because as society modernizes in China, just around the world, like there's a chance that traditional methods get lost.
Yeah, definitely.
And so on the actual UNESCO page, like there's a video from the Chinese tourism industry like that talks about these traditional methods and also the associated practices. And so we'll pop a link in, on we'll share the video in the description below. So people can check it out, but it's a pretty cool video. Like it talks about some of the history of tea, and then some of the methods of processing. It goes.
Yeah.
They talk about the social practices.
Yeah.
They talk about how there are efforts now to preserve this as a thing. They're talking about how current generations, or at least older generations, are trying to pass it down to, whether it's passing it down to the next generation, within their family, or I think that they said their clan. I mean, I get the feeling that it's great that these efforts are being made, and there are organizations being set up to preserve these kind of methods, but I think with a lot of farmers, there is a risk that some of these techniques and knowledge is going to be lost in the, if not the next generation, maybe the generation afterwards.
Yeah, that possibility will be quite high based on our experience of traveling.
Just chatting to the farmers that
the
we
tea region.
Yeah.
But there are some good news as well. So I think if the farmers been doing that for generations, some of them, they would like to preserve it to the next one, of course. But the thing is, they think it's because it involves a lot of hard work, right? And they know how difficult this will be.
Yeah.
And they want their children will have a easier life or a better life.
Yeah. I do remember
the one in Anxi.
Yeah, Anxi. He was saying that it's a tough job.
It's really tough.
He doesn't know anything else. He didn't really get much of an education. He was kind of, part of this sort of family, this kind of farming business.
Yeah.
It's a tough job. It's backbreaking work.
Yeah.
Working around the clock, and obviously, he's got when he has kids, he wants his kids to have a better life.
Yeah.
And like any parent does, right? You want your kids to have a better life, not full of suffering and pain and all that. And so I guess you mentioned before that his wish for his kids is that they don't have to go through his pain.
Exactly.
And the amount of work that he has to do. To just make. To just make a living.
Yeah.
And so he sends his kids off to schools and uni, and gets asks them to move into the city to try and find a
better job.
What he would consider like a better living.
Yeah. So his son now is doing I think he's doing a teacher. He's a teacher now, teaching at the school. So not sure about what it's gonna be like.
For that family.
It's
other partners that we partner with, for example, our Danchong farmer, the producer, I guess you would say he's successfully passed on his knowledge to his son, who's now kind of somewhat
his sons.
He's got three sons, yeah. But it seems one seems to be more active than the other two.
Yeah.
But he's kind of passed them on to all three.
Yeah.
But one seems to be pretty active. In terms of making a lot of the teas.
Yeah.
But the question is, does he want that life for his son, or does his son want that life for himself?
Yeah. So they don't live in the village anymore. So they set up the tea house in the city. So their kids, they grow up in the city.
Right.
So if you ask them, let's go back to the village and then do this work, they probably not really used to it.
Yeah.
Although the first couple of years of their life, they might be in the village,
but they've moved out from school.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the current generation may be okay, but what I'm worried about the most is
the next generation.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's true, because the current generation, he would have, the current son who's somewhat taken over. He would have grown up in the village.
Yeah.
And he mentioned it himself. He didn't have much of an education. The local schools and all that, but he didn't go to university and all that. He just followed his dad's footsteps.
Yeah.
But that's because he was in the village. But then now he's actually moved out. Technically he's moved out of the village.
Yeah, moved out of the village, set up a tea house in the city. So but he goes back very often to the village to make tea.
Especially during.
But that's him, but not his kids.
Yeah. As more people move out of the farms.
Yeah.
Move into the cities, as the cities become more densely populated, how many are going to come back and continue on the family business?
Yep, it's a very tricky question, right?
But on the other hand, there seems to be a new generation of producers and farmers that actually don't have
land.
They don't come from a traditional background of tea, which means they don't have land. Because the way tea producers have worked in the past is that they get based on your family and who you are.
It's basically how it works in the village in China, in rural China.
Yeah.
They have the land, their own land, passed down like generation and generation. So this land is yours.
Yeah.
Okay, and this land is other family.
And if you're born in a family that happens to have like really good tea products there, then great.
Yeah.
You know, you're set. But if you happen to have a slip of land that's not so great, then well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. On the other hand, like people who live in a city and they don't have this kind of like land, and they are interested in tea, like Chinese tea, and then they're willing to learn. So what they do, they go to the university. So I think it mentioned in the video as well.
Yeah, there's university courses.
Yeah, courses, and you learn how the tea is produced. Those kind of people, they are really want to learn, and they want to get into this like tea world, but they don't have anyone to sort of pass down this secret
to them. Yeah.
But they do want to learn and preserve this kind of thing.
So you've got this group of, I guess you would say, new generation tea producers that have learned, they've studied, the science behind tea and all that. They want to take a bit more of a modern approach.
Yeah.
But they also realise that there's a lot of knowledge in these traditional approaches, in these families, these villages that have been doing it for hundreds of years. There's knowledge that's been built up there that stays more or less within the clan, I guess. You can't just say it's within one family, but there's like a lot of built up knowledge there. And there's only so much you can learn in an academic point of view. It's like with anything. You go to university, you study something, but the real learning really begins after you graduate and you go out into the real world and actually try to apply some of that and actually get experience. And so I guess you have this group of new generation tea producers that come out of university, try to get in, try to find masters to study under, to apprenticeship under, and you'll learn. I think they'll learn a lot.
They learn a lot, yeah.
But I guess what will happen a lot is that if there's any sort of secrets, they might not want to pass on everything that they know. They want to keep a few secrets for themselves or for their family that they're not going to pass on to outsiders.
Yeah, because usually those traditional practices, processing tea, farmers, they don't record anything. Yeah. They all go by their experience and their field. So I remember like one of our tea friends, he's very experienced. Like he got a lot of tea knowledge. Like I remember when he talked to one of our farmers, like the one that in Anxi. He's saying like, why don't you like get your son to record every single thing, like when you do like producing your tea. For example, like on the day, what's the temperature of the day, and what's the weather like on the day, what time you pick the tea leaves, and what time you process the tea, and the weather, and all that kind of thing. So if the newer generation can record, like they help you record all these things, then it can be passed down.
There's something to pass down. Yeah.
But the farmer was like, that's not what we do. That's not how we do. And
I guess it's like.
But I mean, like if we have this like new generation like to step in, I mean, that will be a good chance to, to preserve this traditional process and method.
I mean, the good thing is there's a lot of people out there, so there's
it's really hard to say it will die down, definitely. No.
It's not, but and it's good.
Will it continue on for decades?
Let's hope. Let's hope so.
Hopefully.
It's decades, centuries. Let's hope it continues on for ages, and not have it turn into some sort of cheap mass. Just all we have left of tea is like cheap mass-produced products. And I think there is a new generation that's willing to pick it up. But it's very dependent on how previous generations, how willing they are to, to share their knowledge and their experience.
Yeah.